To Genocide Watch, Colombia has been a very unstable country since its independence on July 20, 1810. Tensions in Colombia have arisen because of the polarization between political parties, its large income distribution inequality, and its long history of violence. The most consistent feature of the political system was the revolving door rule of just two parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, both who opposed to the radical land reform. From 1946 to 1964, the period of La Violencia made Colombia one of the most violent countries in the world. It was a conflict between the political parties, but it was rooted in competition for power between Colombia's leading families. On April 9, 1948, the leader of the Liberal Party was shot in the center of Bogota. His assassination outraged the population, and massive riots broke out. During the ensuing civil war between the conservative and liberal parties, hundreds of thousands of people were killed in protest against the abuse of power from the conservatives. The liberals abstained from a presidential election, which gave an excuse for President Ospina, who was a conservative, to close Congress and declare a state of siege. In 1966, the FARC, or the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, was created, and is currently the most powerful guerrilla movement in Colombia. Since the 1980s, the FARC has made alliances with narco-traffickers and moved directly to the cultivation of cocaine, marijuana, and opium. Paramilitaries organized themselves as self-defense groups against both the communist guerrillas and the drug traffickers. Their argument was that if the government could not protect its citizens, they would. Human rights abuses have been committed by paramilitaries, especially by the paramilitary coalition known as the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia, commonly known as the AUC. The AUC has regularly created a threatening atmosphere in the communities that they control, committing massacre, killings, forced displacement, rape, and extortion. Conflicts between drug cartels, guerrillas, and paramilitaries have inflicted frightful violence in Colombia. In the situation in Colombia, there was not an incitement of genocide in this situation, or any public encouragement to join the massacre. However, people like the paramilitaries organized themselves with an argument that if the government could not protect them, then they would have to do it for themselves. According to the Holocaust Museum of Houston, Article 2 in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intention to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. The tragedy that is happening in Colombia cannot be defined as a genocide because there is no intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. What is defined here is crimes against humanity, and it needs to be taken care of.
Other states have a huge part in the Colombian Civil War. The U.S. gave at least $3 billion from the years 2000 and 2001 to Colombia in Plan Colombia. The money was thought to help humanitarian efforts in Colombia. However, 75% went straight to their military, which ended up aiding the paramilitary groups that are inflicting chaos in Colombia. Paramilitary groups kill anyone who they believe are guerrilla sympathizers, and they cause thousands of deaths each year. America is huge in the war on drugs. 90% of all cocaine in America comes from Colombia, according to BBC.com. Other states have been affected by the Colombian Civil War. Venezuela and Ecuador received over 6,000 refugees from the Colombian Civil War, according to c-r.org. Drug trade and guerrilla action in Brazil and Peru is also a huge problem. Among other states to help in the Colombian crisis, Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela and other South American countries, help house refugees that were displaced during the Colombian conflict. NGO involvement in the Colombian Civil War is also significant. European Union gave $300 million for social and economic development in 2000, according to culturalsurvival.org. 38 U.S. NGOs drafted letters to Congress in April 2002 for millions of dollars to be spent in military training to combat for peace in Colombia. 24 Colombian NGOs in July of 2000, however, complained that Plan Colombia neglected peace and human rights and other social objectives and were being drowned out by military efforts. International organization involvement in Colombia is also very significant. UNHCR helps relocate displaced Colombians every year, the refugees, because of the Colombian Civil War, according to UNHCR.org. The ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross, helped during pre-1998 peace process in promoting international humanitarian efforts, which happened to be the first application of international humanitarian law in Colombia, along with the United Nations. The Group of Friends was created. It included countries such as Cuba, Spain, France, Norway, Switzerland, Mexico, Italy, Venezuela, and Sweden. The Group of Friends aimed to offer technical assistance on crucial issues along with the United Nations. The United Nations also aimed to help the peacemaking process in Colombia, according to c-r.org. The state of Colombia has recommended ways to end the civil war in Colombia. In the year 2000, President Pastrana proposed that Colombia receive aid from other countries, about $7.5 billion over the next 3 years. The next president, President Uribe, asked the UN to help. Also, the National Consolidation Plan was presented, abbreviation PNC. The PNC's whole-of-government approach is designed to expand state presence into vulnerable areas where poverty, absence of rule of law, illegal armed group activity, drug trafficking and cultivating, recognized ethnic territory disputes, and human rights violations are most pronounced. Other states have also recommended ways to end the civil war in Colombia. Plan Colombia was enacted. Plan Colombia is the name of a United States military and diplomatic aid initiative aimed at combating Colombian drug cartels and left-wing insurgent groups in Colombian territory, such as paramilitary groups, including FARC. America's involvement in Colombia was seen as a cry for the war on drugs. However, that is not mainly the case. Money was also spent in Plan Colombia for military help, to help crack down on the paramilitary groups that are in Colombia. It was also aimed to decrease drug trafficking, such as cocaine, which is highly prevalent in Colombia. Plan Colombia was also enacted to give humanitarian assistance to Colombia. Also, other than the 38 U.S. NGOs drafting letters to Congress and 24 Colombian NGOs writing letters to Colombian government, NGOs also have other ways that they recommend ending the civil war in Colombia. 73 Colombian NGOs wrote a statement in June 2000 regarding Plan Colombia, which denounced that the plan would only attack indigenous population and destroy their cultures and lifestyle while severely and seriously harming the Amazon. Plan Putumayo was also created by NGOs to help end the civil war in Colombia. $150.5 million was asked for Plan Putumayo in 2001 over the span of the next 5 years. Plan Putumayo would have nutrition and school subsidies, improvement of roads, portable water and sewage, health centers, and humanitarian assistance to Colombians. I may ask who is to blame. We believe that the state of Colombia, the other states such as the United States of America, and the ICC are to blame for the civil war in Colombia going on longer than 4 decades. The state of Colombia has not done anything to end the civil war, other than ask other countries for monetary aid, instead of cracking down on the paramilitary groups, drug trafficking, and terrorism groups that fill their country. The United States has not done anything other than put their countries into Colombia, which adds up ending more chaos to the violence, and giving money to Colombia frivolously, which ends up going to the paramilitary groups, which kill dozens of innocent people each week and thousands of people each year, instead of making sure the money goes to humanitarian efforts to help rebuild Colombia. The ICC has not done anything to end the civil war in Colombia other than offer constitutional reform, which still has not been enacted yet. Even though Colombia is still a situation under analysis, it should be acted upon immediately, because the civil war has been going on much too long for anyone to just sit back in silence and not do anything huge and major to end the civil war. Those involved in the Colombian Civil War, such as military leaders, paramilitary groups, drug traffickers, terrorism groups, and others of the sort should be tried by the ICC and sentenced to a very harsh punishment. All the other actions that have been taken against actors in the Colombian Civil War have been much too lenient, since obviously the Civil War is still going on.